So if you are not here for girly, possibly TMI topics, then it is time for you to exit stage right. Hey guys, it's Amanda, and I am here finally sitting down to talk about my PCOS story. So if you haven't heard about PCOS, it is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I don't know if it wasn't popular, if it wasn't well known a few years back or what, but I know I've been hearing about it a lot lately. I follow a lot of different women that have PCOS on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, I think this is something that I have been dealing with most of my life without even knowing what it was. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna backtrack to when I was 14, and I believe that this really started for me, but I didn't know it. So when I was 14, I started having really bad acne. I was having a little bit of facial hair, but the biggest problem was that I did not have my period for an entire year. And being young and naive and not sexually active at all, it was not because I was pregnant. Now, the funny story time with that is when I went to my gynecologist for this problem, she asked me that, infamous question, are you sexually active? And me being the silly little girl that I was, yeah, I had a boyfriend at the time and we were kind of fooling around, but we weren't doing that. And still I was silly enough to ask if a certain thing was considered being sexually active or just, the actual doing of the sex. And it was so embarrassing, guys, because my gynecologist, when she went out of the room, I heard her talking to the nurses and they were laughing at me. So besides that being unprofessional, it was just mortifying. Anyway, so they did some blood work and stuff like that, and they didn't find anything super abnormal, so their solution was just to get me on birth control, and if that helped, then we were all good. So after going on birth control, my periods became regular, and that was just that. I was on birth control for most of my teenage years and young adult life, and that was that. The only time that I did try to go off it, I think that I just was not sure if if it was actually good for me. I started seeing different things, so I wanted to try to wean myself off of it, and it didn't end up being good. I felt like it stunted my weight loss. I was doing really good with that at the time, and that kind of put a halt to it. My acne was coming back, and I was noticing, or at least I thought I noticed, that my facial hair was growing faster. So I was not into that, did not want that to happen, so I went right back on birth control. I was on it until my car accident, and I will explain more about that. So when I was in the car accident, I actually had blood clots and a pulmonary embolism, which was a blood clot going towards my lungs. And so when that happens, you're more prone for blood clots in the future. And I was on blood thinners for a good portion of 2016 when my car accident happened. So birth control wasn't an option for me. And I still wasn't aware of PCOS or anything out of the ordinary at that time, because when your body undergoes trauma, it takes a while for your body to get back into its normal state. So anyone I talked to about not having my period, it was perfectly normal because my body had undergone so much stress. And it seemed like any time that I would get my period once, but I was having surgeries kind of every few months, it felt like. So every time I felt like I was starting to get normal in any capacity, I had another surgery. My body underwent more stress, and therefore it knocked everything out of whack again. So when my surgeries were finally kind of all through, my periods started coming back regularly, and I was kind of excited because it was the first time I had been off birth control, and I was happy to see that my periods were still normal. I was excited they were coming back. The one thing that I did notice was that I was not losing weight very easily. Now, at the time, it was hard for me because I had been in the car accident. I couldn't really go to the gym because it took forever for me just to like relearn to walk. I had that giant hematoma, if you remember, and I've talked about in a bajillion videos. So I was not losing weight easily, and I kind of got lazy with it because I couldn't work out, and it didn't seem like just diet alone was helping that much. I mean, I'm sure I could have found a diet that worked for me, but I was just done with it. Like, I had been through so much, I just felt like I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted. So my eating, not that great. So it was about August, I'd say. I didn't get my period that month, and then it got to September, didn't get my period that month, so I started to worry again, like, what the heck. And I, you know, I was thinking maybe I was pregnant, and nope, not pregnant either. So I didn't know what the heck was going on. This was also after my thyroid surgery, so I was on Synthroid, which messes with your hormones and stuff too. So I chalked it up to just not having the right dose. My hormones were out of whack. That was what it was. And so I was waiting until I went to see my endocrinologist to bring that up to her and say, oh, I think it's related to this. Now, as things progressed, my acne actually started getting worse again. It was the worst that it had been in years. I had acne all over here, just everywhere. And then of course I felt like my facial hair again was growing faster. So, I mean, I knew that birth control helped me, but I also knew that it wasn't an option anymore. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. I did not have PCOS as a term, didn't know anything about it until it was when we were staying at our in-laws, so I would watch the news every morning because our Netflix and stuff didn't work, and so I would just put the news on in the background. I'm not really a big news watcher, but I would put it on the background for noise in the morning when I was getting ready for work. And that day, Sasha from Pretty Little Liars, she was on Dancing with the Stars, and she was on, I think it was Good Morning America, or you know, whatever, to talk specifically about her PCOS. And that was when I first learned of all the different side effects that go along with having PCOS. The acne, the facial hair, the not being able to lose weight, irregular periods. And I was like, mind blown. Oh my God, that sounds exactly like what I'm going through. And it was the first time that I had heard about anything like this. So my appointment to meet with my endocrinologist was in like a month from there. So I knew that at that time I would either find out that it was the Synthroid throwing everything off, I wasn't on the right dose, or maybe this whole PCOS thing was a possibility. I started like Pinteresting it, Googling, you know. So fast forward to then, I show up at my appointment and she says, wow, your blood work looks great as far as your dose of Synthroid. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm having all of these problems. And the thing that did not come back good about my blood work was actually my blood sugar. It had skyrocketed at the time, so that was an area of concern for her as well that she was going to bring up. So along with all of my other symptoms, the acne and the facial hair and all of that, she was like, it sounds to me like you have PCOS. Now, obviously, I had this in the back of my head, so I jumped right in and was on board, like, with trying to find a plan to determine this and fix this. So what I had to do was take blood work to rule out some other, I think it was some other hormonal thing. I don't know exactly what it was, so I do apologize. But I did that blood work, ruled that out, and it was determined that I definitely had PCOS. So in addition to that, and I don't think this is everyone's story, but here is mine. They were very concerned about diabetes because of my weight and the PCOS and all of that combined. So I met with a diabetic nutritionist, and she helped me to get back on track. Whereas I had thought that, you know, as long as you stayed under a certain amount of carbs for the day, she kind of like educated me on the fact that like should be spread out. I was having all my carbs at night, so I was more mindful of trying to, she had said 45 calories for each meal and then like 20 for snacks, maybe 15. Sorry that I'm not exactly certain on that, but that would help manage the blood sugar so it wouldn't spike at any certain point during the day. So I was monitoring my blood sugar, and that wasn't necessarily for PCOS, that was more for the diabetic aspect. And I was checking my A1C morning and night at that time. Okay, so at this point, again, I had my camera stop recording, and I thought that I picked up where I left off, and I definitely didn't. So what I was talking about was I had been checking my A1C twice a day at that time, and then I slowly went down to once a day, and now I'm not at all. I do get it checked every 6 months, and it has been maintaining at a good place. The other thing I started talking about was how I take metformin, which for some people has bad side effects. It's like tummy troubles and stuff, but it hasn't been bad for me, so I've been really excited to have something that helped. I started out taking it twice a day, and I would take it in the morning with food and then before bed, and I never had any problem. And now I'll continue to talk about how I take it now. I have reduced that to just one a day now with the recommendation of my doctor, because my periods have actually become regular and they were actually a little too long. So now I am just taking it once a day at night. The other thing that they recommended was exercise, and that was both for the diabetic aspect and the PCOS. So they had recommended, I think, 120 minutes a week, which really isn't that long, but I wasn't doing anything at the time. I was just literally doing nothing. So anything for me was something. What I decided to do at that time was take my dog for a walk every morning, or go to the gym, one of those things. Whatever it was seemed good to me at the time. I had started to do more things and be more active, and it was just interesting to me how they all interconnected, the PCOS, the diabetes, and it all just focused on being a healthier me. I don't know that my situation encompasses everybody's situation. I know that PCOS is not just the things that I listed, it's a combination of things. So if you just have really bad acne, if you just have facial hair, if you just are having trouble losing weight, it does not mean you have PCOS. It's really the combination of, like, I had 4 of the 5 possible things. The other thing is cyst on your ovaries, but just because you have PCOS does not mean that you have cysts on your ovaries. It's just a part of what can be part of it. Even though it is in the name, it is not a necessary thing that is a part of it. And I feel really, really lucky because I have a doctor that brought that up to me, that I didn't have to say, well, I heard about this and I think this is what's wrong. I know that there are a lot of women out there that are struggling with that. They have these issues and they don't have any name for it, and their doctors don't necessarily, they don't bring that up. They kind of dismiss it. And what I have to say to that is, if you are experiencing these issues or anything that is any sort of discomfort, or like, that's definitely something that you should address. If you're having issues, it is your job to be your own advocate, because nobody else is going to do it for you, unfortunately. Not even necessarily your doctor. The one example that I like to use is when I was in the hospital. I actually went to rehab, and I was all, like, not all better, but I wasn't in need of being in, like, the emergency room. However, I had started bleeding in my leg, which was due to the blood thinners that I had been taking for the blood clots that I had. I had to go back to the emergency room. I had to have an IVC filter put in. Once I was in my room, I had a nurse come and she was going to give me a shot, and I said, "What is that for?" And she said that it was a blood thinner. Now, me being just put in the hospital again because of blood thinners, I was like, so why am I having a blood thinner? Now, I ended up finding out from the doctor that it was just a lower dose and that it was still necessary because of everything that happened, but it should not have any of the negative effects that I experienced with the high dose that I was on before. However, the nurse could not explain that to me, and had I not been an advocate for myself, I would have been unknowingly doing something to my body that I didn't know why or how. Like, they just thought that it was assigned to me, and that's what I get. Like, no explanation, no knowledge. And really, like, I just feel like that's such a problem. Like, and I can only imagine how many people are patients in hospitals and just accept whatever comes their way. That's so problematic to me. I just really feel like so often problems are dismissed when people bring them up, because there are people that worry for no reason, but I feel like I would rather have the peace of mind of a doctor checking it out, unless I was like a chronic complainer or something like that and they knew that that was part of my history. But I feel like when you have a concern, I would rather have known that I at least checked it out and asked my doctor than just letting it go and be like, well, they're gonna dismiss it, they're gonna say that it's nothing. Like, that's just not fair to you, because it's your life and you deserve to live long and healthy. Like, I don't know. So if you're dealing with any of these symptoms, I recommend definitely like talking to your doctor about it, and seeing if it's something that they can help you with. But it's definitely manageable, and like, I've been doing the keto lifestyle and I really feel like that's helped me a lot. The metformin and getting all my sugar back on track, it's helped my skin. I still have the facial hair, but there are a lot of different ways to manage that, and people do. I know people do laser hair removal, and then they're just removing it yourself, or there's just, you know, like, living proud, you know? Yeah, that's my PCOS journey. Like I said, I don't know that it necessarily corresponds with everybody that's had PCOS, and there's all different variations, and I'm sure everybody is different, but that is my story. That is what I'm doing. And I feel like I've been managing it pretty darn well. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. If you like this, please hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more videos about whatever my little brain comes up with, then make sure to tap that bell so that you get notifications of when I post again, because it is pretty sporadic, though I do want to eventually go back to weekly videos, but I've been saying that for ever. So yeah, I will talk to you next time. Bye guys.